AITA for breaking up with my perfect boyfriend after he made one comment about my kids that I can't forget? Broken heart. When I first met him, I wasn't looking for love. Honestly, love was the last thing on my mind. At 26, being a single mom to two kids was already more than a full-time job. My days started before sunrise, packing lunches, finding shoes, brushing little heads of hair, making sure homework was in backpacks. My nights ended long after bedtime stories, dishes, and endless laundry. I had carved out this life for myself where I was both mom and dad, provider and nurturer, disciplinarian and comforter. Love? That felt like a luxury I didn't have the time or energy for. But then came a random swipe on Facebook dating. I almost didn't match with him. His profile looked too polished, too perfect, the kind of man who wouldn't be interested in a woman with baggage, let alone two children. But he messaged first, and something about the way he wrote made me pause. He wasn't just dropping a line about my smile or asking what I was looking for. He asked about my favorite book. He asked if I liked coffee in the morning or tea at night. He asked questions that made me feel like a person again, not just a single mom. From the very beginning, I was upfront about my kids. I told him I was a package deal. No secrets, no surprises. And he didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. He said he admired me for being honest, and that he respected how hard I worked to build a life for my children. That should have been a red flag. It was almost too perfect. But I wanted to believe it. Our first date wasn't glamorous. It was at a little diner, the kind with sticky menus and waitresses who called you hon. I was nervous, not because I didn't think he'd like me, but because I didn't think he'd understand my life. But the moment he walked in and smiled, something in me relaxed. He listened when I talked. Really listened. Not the fake nodding and half-distracted kind of listening, but the kind where he leaned forward, asked follow-up questions, and remembered. Details later, he was 31, steady in ways I wasn't used to. He had a good job, his own place, and a maturity that felt comforting after the chaos of dating men who were only interested in a good time. He didn't make me feel like a burden. He didn't act like my kids were a problem. He made me feel normal, desired, seen. After that night, things moved quickly. We fell into a rhythm, daily texts, calls, video chats. My kids knew about him early on, not as mom's boyfriend, but as a friend who sometimes came around. He was patient with them, never forcing a connection, just letting them warm up to him naturally. And they did. Slowly, but surely, they started asking when he was coming over, if he could join us for dinner, if he'd play board games with us. That IT felt like a dream I didn't dare believe in. A man who didn't just accept my kids, but actually seemed to enjoy being around them. A man who could sit at my kitchen table and laugh with my children while I cooked, as if he had always belonged there. My family adored him, too. My parents said he was polite and dependable. My friends envied how thoughtful he was, how he treated me with respect. He checked all the boxes: kind, reliable, attentive. For months, I thought I had finally stumbled into the kind of love story I had quietly wished for but never thought I deserved. And for a while, I let myself believe I had found it. The missing piece. The person who could walk into my complicated, messy, beautiful life and not only accept it but thrive in it. I told myself this was it. That after years of being just a mom, I could finally be a woman who was loved deeply, without conditions. But love has a way of testing itself. And sometimes, the cracks don't show until much later, when you least expect them. If you asked me 6 months into our relationship, I would have told you he was the best thing that had ever happened to me. It wasn't just that he treated me well, though he did. It was the way he seemed to understand the life I was living. Even though it was nothing like his own, dating as a single mom is complicated. There's always the fear that someone will see your children as obstacles, as baggage, as reasons to run. But he never made me feel that way. From the beginning, he stepped into my world with ease. He didn't roll his eyes when I had to cancel dinner plans because one of the kids had a fever. He didn't get annoyed when our phone calls were interrupted by background chaos, spilled juice, fights over toys, cries of mom echoing down the hallway. He just laughed, told me he understood, and picked up the conversation right where we left off. He had this way of making me feel like I wasn't a burden. Like my life, with all its complications, was something he actually wanted to be part of. I remember one night when I apologized for how noisy my house was. Toys everywhere, cartoons blaring on the TV, my kids bouncing around long after bedtime. He just smiled and said, "This is real life. I'd rather be here than anywhere else." My heart melted in that moment, because I had been told the opposite so many times. I had been made to feel like I had to apologize for being a mom, as if my children made me less desirable, less worthy of love. But he made me feel like I was more. Like the fact that I was a mom wasn't a flaw, but something he admired. He showed up in big ways, too, helping me fix a leaky faucet in the kitchen, dropping off groceries when I was too exhausted to shop, offering to watch a movie with the kids so I could take a shower in peace. They were small gestures, maybe, but for a mom who had been carrying the weight of the world alone, they meant everything. Even my kids seemed to sense something different about him. They were cautious at first, but soon they were climbing into his lap with storybooks, tugging at his arm to play, asking if he'd stay for dinner. The bond between them wasn't forced. It grew naturally, like it was always meant to happen. And my family? They couldn't stop singing his praises. My mom said she'd never seen me so happy. My dad respected him in a way he hadn't respected anyone I'd dated before. My friends joked that I had finally won the boyfriend lottery. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. I wasn't just a mom doing her best. I was a woman being cherished. He called me beautiful when I felt like a mess. He listened to me vent about work, about bills, about the endless stress of parenting, and instead of offering empty platitudes, he asked how he could help. He was steady. He was kind. He was patient. He was, in every way that mattered, perfect at least. That's what I thought. Because here's the thing about perfect: sometimes it's just a mask. And no matter how well it fits, eventually it slips. It started as just another night. One of those ordinary evenings that felt so normal I never could have predicted it would be the turning point in our relationship. We weren't fighting. We weren't dealing with any big issue. I was curled up on the couch, scrolling through my phone. The kids were playing in the living room. And he called me on video chat like he always did when we couldn't be together in person. The sound of his voice always put me at ease. He had this calm tone, warm but steady, like he could pull me out of the stress of my day just by talking. We were laughing about something stupid. I think it was about a meme he had sent earlier, and for a moment, life felt exactly the way I wanted it to. Simple, comfortable, happy. Then, like it always does in a house with children, the peace shattered in an instant. My kids had been playing quietly, but suddenly one of them snatched a toy from the other, and the next thing I knew, there were raised voices, little feet stomping, and tears welling up. The argument escalated in seconds, and I jumped into mom mode without even thinking. I muted the call for a moment, stepped into the fray, and diffused the situation the way I always did. Firm voice, quick negotiation, and finally, separating them into different rooms until the storm blew over. It wasn't anything unusual, just a normal part of raising kids. A part one had lived through 100 times before. When I returned to the call, I smiled apologetically. "Sorry about that," I said, shaking my head with a laugh. "You know how they are sometimes." And that's when it happened. He smiled back, but then he said the words that still echo in my mind to this day. "It's okay. Hopefully our kids won't be like them." At first, I didn't even react. I think my brain needed a few seconds to catch up with what I'd just heard. But then it sank in, heavy and sharp, like a knife sliding between my ribs. Our kids won't be like them. The casualness of it cut deeper than if he'd shouted it in anger. He wasn't mad. He wasn't frustrated. He thought he was being lighthearted, maybe even reassuring. But what he really did was draw a line between me, my children, and some imaginary future where he could rewrite what being a parent looked like. I froze, staring at the screen, my heart pounding. My kids are my everything. They aren't a side detail. They aren't something you tolerate on your way to the real relationship. They are the center of my life. And in that one sentence, he had dismissed them. Not just dismissed, he had quietly insulted them, compared them to some lesser version of children he hoped to have one day. Children who, in his mind, would be better than mine. I forced a laugh, trying to brush it off, but inside I was spiraling. 1,000 thoughts hit me at once. Did he mean it? Was he serious? Was this how he really saw my kids, as flawed? As not good enough? As something to endure until he could have his own? I thought back to every moment he had spent with them. The storybooks, the board games, the dinners. Were they real, or were they just performance? Did he smile through gritted teeth, waiting for the day he wouldn't have to deal with them anymore? My stomach churned with anger and shame. Anger that he would dare say something like that. Shame that maybe, deep down, I had feared this all along. That no matter how perfect he seemed, no matter how much he said he loved me, part of him would never see my children as his. That I tried to confront him immediately. What do you mean by that? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He blinked, caught off guard. I didn't mean anything, he said quickly. It was just a comment. But comments reveal truths people don't want to say out loud. I knew that. I had learned that lesson too many times in past relationships. The rest of the call was awkward. I told him I was tired, made an excuse to hang up early. But long after the call ended, I couldn't shake his words. They replayed in my head as I folded laundry, as I checked on the kids sleeping peacefully in their beds, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Hopefully our kids won't be like them. It wasn't just a slip of the tongue. It was a glimpse into his mind. A place where my kids, my beautiful, loud, messy, wonderful kids, weren't enough. Where he secretly hoped for a future family that looked different, behaved differently, maybe even existed instead of the one I had already given him by letting him into my life. I cried that night. Quiet tears, the kind that slipped down your face without sobs. Because I realized something terrifying. No matter how perfect he seemed, no matter how much he loved me, I would always be afraid that he didn't truly love all of me. And my children are a part of me. They are not optional. That one comment cracked the picture-perfect image I had built of him. And once the crack appeared, I couldn't stop seeing it. The morning after his comment, I woke up still hearing the words in my head like they had been etched into the walls of my mind. Hopefully our kids won't be like them. It didn't matter how many times I tried to convince myself it was a meaningless slip. The weight of it pressed down on me like a stone. He texted me as usual. Good morning, love. Hope you slept well. Normally those messages made me smile, but this time I just stared at my phone, my chest heavy. Did he really think that way about my children? Did he look at them and see flaws? Did he look at me and secretly resent the life I already had before him? I couldn't hold it in. When he called later that day, I asked him outright. My voice shook a little, but I forced the words out. What did you mean last night, when you said hopefully our kids won't be like them? For a moment, he was silent. Then he sighed, rubbing his face like he regretted saying it. I didn't mean it the way it sounded, he said. I was just tired. It was late. I was trying to make a dumb joke. I love your kids. You know that. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But doubt had already crept in. A joke? I asked, my voice sharper than I expected. Because it didn't sound like a joke. It sounded like you don't think they're good enough. He shook his head quickly. No, that's not it. I'm sorry, okay? It was stupid. I wasn't thinking. I know I hurt you, and I hate that. This is all new to me. I've never dated someone with kids before. I'm learning, but I'm not perfect. Please, don't let one comment erase everything we've built. He sounded sincere. His voice cracked the way it does when he's emotional, and for a moment, I softened. He told me how much he admired me as a mom, how he thought I was strong and resilient, how he loved the way I balanced everything. He said he couldn't imagine his life without me. And yet, the seed of doubt had already been planted, because here's the thing. Once someone reveals even a glimpse of how they really see you, or the people you love most, it's almost impossible to unhear it. His apology felt real, but it didn't erase the sting of his words. It didn't erase the image of him secretly comparing my children to some imagined, better kids. That I replayed our entire relationship in my head. Every smile he gave my kids. Every time he played board games or read bedtime stories. Every family dinner. Were those moments genuine? Or were they an act, something he endured because of me? The memories that once brought me comfort now made me anxious. What if he had always been silently judging them? What if he looked at their tantrums, their sibling fights, their quirks, the things that make them kids, and thought, I'll do it differently when I have my own? I started to notice little things I had overlooked before. The way he sometimes hesitated before stepping in to help with the kids. The way he praised me for being a good mom, but rarely complimented my children directly. The way he seemed relieved when it was just the two of us, like he could finally breathe without the chaos of family life around him. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was letting one comment spiral into a bigger issue than it really was. That's what he wanted me to believe, that I was blowing things out of proportion. that I needed to let it go. But here's what he didn't understand. I've been down this road before. I've dated men who smiled politely around my children, but never truly accepted them. I've been with people who made me feel like my kids were baggage instead of blessings. I swore I would never put myself, or them, through that again. So when he said what he said, it wasn't just about that one night. It was about every insecurity I had buried deep down. Every fear that no one would ever truly love me and my children as a package deal. Every doubt that maybe, just maybe, my kids would always be seen as obstacles to the kind of love I wanted. His apology was thoughtful. His words were kind. But they couldn't undo the truth I had seen in that single slip. That I smiled at him, nodded, told him I appreciated the apology. But inside, something had shifted. A crack had formed in the foundation of our relationship, and no matter how many kind words he piled on top of it, I could still see the fracture. Love is supposed to feel safe. And after that night, I didn't feel safe anymore. In the days after his apology, I tried to convince myself to move on, to bury the comment deep down, to chalk it up to nerves or inexperience or just a bad choice of words. I told myself I should focus on the good, the thoughtful texts, the way he always asked about my day, the way he showed up when I needed help. I tried to remind myself of how safe I used to feel with him, how much I believed he loved me. But the harder I tried to forget, the louder that sentence echoed in my mind. Hopefully our kids won't be like them. I started watching him more closely. Every time he interacted with my kids, I wondered what he was really thinking. When they argued over toys, was he judging them? When they spilled juice on the carpet, was he silently comparing them to some imaginary better children? Every time he praised me for being a good mom, I wondered if it was his way of avoiding praising them directly. That it felt like living with a shadow over my shoulder, a constant reminder that the man I thought was perfect might not actually accept the most important part of me, my children. The truth hit me one night after dinner. The kids had been particularly rowdy, running around the house, giggling and shouting the way kids do when they're happy. I looked at him across the table, and instead of smiling, his jaw was tight. He forced a grin when I caught his eye, but I could see the flicker of something else there, frustration, maybe even judgment. And in that moment, I realized I didn't trust him anymore, because love without trust isn't love. It's just a fragile illusion, waiting to shatter. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, asking myself the same questions over and over. Could I build a future with a man who might never truly embrace my children? Could I risk exposing them to someone who might always see them as less than? Could I live the rest of my life wondering if he secretly resented the family I already had? The answer came quietly, like a whisper in my chest. No, that I loved him. Or at least, I loved the version of him I thought I knew. But loving him wasn't enough if it meant betraying my children. They deserve someone who celebrates them, not someone who tolerates them. They deserve a stepfather who sees their quirks and chaos and joy as gifts, not flaws. I ended IT. IT wasn't dramatic. There were no screaming fights, no slammed doors. Just me, sitting across from him, telling him the truth. I told him that. His comment had shaken me to my core, that I couldn't look at him the same way after hearing it. I told him that I needed a partner who didn't just love me, but loved my kids as if they were his own. And he, for all his apologies, couldn't give me that guarantee. He begged me to reconsider. He said it was one mistake, one careless phrase. He said he loved me more than anything, that he would never intentionally hurt me. And maybe that was true. But sometimes, the damage comes not from intent, but from truth slipping out in unguarded moments. And I couldn't unhear it. When it was over, I cried. Not because I doubted my decision, but because endings always hurt, even when they're necessary. He wasn't a bad man. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't abusive. But he wasn't right for me. And sometimes, that's enough. Now, weeks later, I still think about him. About what could have been. About the future we almost had. But when I tuck my kids into bed at night, when I hear their laughter filling the house, I know I made the right choice. Because they deserve a mother who protects them fiercely, who refuses to settle for a love that doesn't honor them. So here I am, writing this to strangers on the internet, asking the question I can't ask anyone else. AITA for breaking up with my perfect boyfriend after he made one comment about my kids that I can't forget? Thank you for watching this story on True Tales Hub. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story that we post new tales twice a day, and each one comes with unexpected twists you won't see coming.